The fourth episode of WandaVision was another good one, and talk about a change of pace. Oh, and you did see Vision, right? Well, anyway, stick with me and I'll break it down after the intro. Well, hello there, I'm Jeremy and welcome back to Freeform Disney, and it is WandaVision time, episode 4. And who would have expected the episode to play out the way it did, huh? It's time to jump out of this world, well, out of Wanda's world anyway, and see everything we saw again, but from a different point of view. So here's what went down. The episode starts in with us seeing Monica Rambeau, who, by the way, is the little girl we saw back in Captain Marvel, the daughter of Captain Marvel's best friend, Maria Rambeau. Heck, the daughter, Monica, she's the one who even picked the colors for Captain Marvel's suit. Well, anyway, this is now Captain Monica Rambeau. Anyway, we're going backwards in time because we get to see Monica coming back to life after being snapped out. We see her and many other people rematerializing from dust in a hospital. And, well, it's kind of what you would expect in reality for that moment happening. It is chaos, utter pandemonium. Even doctors and nurses are snapping back and they are unprepared for what to do and even how to help people. The hospital instantly has no capacity and everyone is overwhelmed. And let me tell you, I loved that we got to see this. This starts to scratch a little bit more of that itch of seeing more about the effects of the snap and, well, the return snap, or the snap back, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, it's still so very little. I'd love to have, just say, a show about normal people going through the whole snap, whole blip period, taken in a heartbeat. But hey, I hang on every one of these little moments we get. Well, anyway, Monica, well, is super disoriented. Understandably, heck, who the hell wouldn't be? She's desperately looking for her mother and she finds out the worst possible news she could get. Essentially, her mother's cancer came back, well, years after she was snapped away, and she ended up dying 3 years ago. Yeah, dang, how do you even process that? Well, anyway, then the Marvel logo comes off and we're off beyond that moment, cause on to plot. So we're off to SWORD headquarters. And if you look around, you see a ton of what looks like they might be launch pads, I think. And also that giant central building makes me think of NASA's vehicle assembly building, which is where they finish putting together rockets before they head off to the launch pads. And all of this, by the way, makes sense given that SWORD is looking more towards space. SWORD, by the way, for what it's worth, is kind of the successor organization to SHIELD, and that acronym spells out Sentient World Observation Response Division. And we get to find out that Maria Rambeau, Monica's mother, actually founded the organization, went through all kinds of work starting it up, which, that's such a cool little bit of world building. And, at the same time, of course, she's dead now, so it's like, But hey, that's cool nonetheless. Dang. Which means obviously we're not going to get to see her and Carol Danvers, her best friend, who happens to be Captain Marvel. We're not going to get to see them get back together unless maybe we get a flashback somewhere in the future maybe or something. Because obviously Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, was back on the planet before she died. Because she came back during Endgame time before they went off and killed Thanos. So clearly there's a possibility that the two ran into each other again. Well, anyway. So there we are, off at the headquarters of SWORD. And where is SWORD, you might wonder? Well, pretty sure we're up in New York, both for the fact that we drive to New Jersey in a little bit, and also one of those TVs has a local New York station on it. Pretty good sign that we're probably upstate New York somewhere, which actually makes me wonder how far away it is from where the Avengers had their headquarters. Just wondering. Obviously not right there, or there'd be all kinds of other problems, right? Or maybe it is. Maybe they built the whole place afterwards. I don't know. I'm voting against that though. But anyway. Yeah, no, there are signs all around about what SWORD does. We have a sign in the hallway that talks about flight crew and life systems, and we get to see kind of this cargo area with all kinds of stuff. Because as we find out from who is the acting director of SWORD, Tyler Hayward. I'm sure it's not the last time we see him. We're probably going to see him a lot, both here in this show and in the future, I'm guessing. Just because I imagine Sword's going to be a bit of a big player. But anyway, apparently things weren't going well for the whole astronaut side of Sword because, well, half of them got blipped and the other half, well, as he said, lost their nerve. So then Sword went heavy into robotics, nanotech, and AI instead of human-based missions. And that explains what a lot of us have been wondering. Because the acronym SWORD is actually changed from what it was in the comics. The W in the comics was world, and here it's weapon. So this is apparently the reason for that change, so now it's sentient weapons. Back to that AI, robotics, and nanotech they're going at. Interesting change. Gonna see how that develops here in the future too, I'm sure. Well, luckily for us in the sake of the show WandaVision, but, well, sadly for Monica, she's grounded and stuck on terrestrial missions because, well, she just came back from the blip, and by orders her own mother set up in case people ever came back, they don't get to go up into space for the time being. Which, oh, by the way, getting to go up into space. I mean, it's been 5 years in the Marvel Universe. All kinds of time for development there, and we know so little about what's really been going on yet. It's just like this little drip feed right here. We got the little piece at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, where we got to go ahead and see Nick Fury up in space. Definitely, we're assuming that's some sword action right there too, but just how many teams up in space do we have? I wonder so much right there. I don't know that we're going to find out here in the course of WandaVision, but it's going to come somewhere in the future. Maybe the next Spider-Man movie. Maybe the Secret Invasion series, I'm sure it's going to pop up, but it's got to pop up before that some more. Well, anyway, moving right along. So off she goes to go help out the FBI on a missing persons case over in Westview, New Jersey. And who is the FBI agent over there? It's Jimmy Woo. And, oh, by the way, this part is great. Because Jimmy Woo over there, upon greeting Monica, he does this little sleight of hand, a little magic trick of bringing a card out of thin air when Monica shows up. And now, if you remember, back in Ant-Man and the Wasp, where we first met Jimmy Woo, he was in awe of Scott Lang's magic tricks. Ant-Man right there. And this says that he's really been working on them and that, well, our good old Agent Woo has gotten really good at it. Although I suppose he's probably had 6 years or so to get good. Now that's my guess here, because it doesn't feel like he got blipped. Because there's no reference to it, and he seems pretty settled in for what would have been a pretty disorienting 3 weeks otherwise. And while we're at it, I've gotta wonder something else here. Who is this missing person we're referencing? Now, this certainly could be nothing, or it could mean a lot later in the MCU. Because apparently this person was in the Witness Protection Program and was important enough to get Jimmy Woo to pop all the way out to Westview from where he was. Just wondering. The MCU loves to pepper little things like this in here and have them matter later, so this certainly could be something. Well, anyway, moving right along. The next bit, we get to go watch this pair of cops tell us that Westview doesn't exist while there is a giant sign for it next to them, and well, the town itself is actually right behind them, which is just too dang funny. But more importantly, we now know that Wanda can certainly influence people far beyond the town of Westview, as she's blocked all knowledge of Westview from nearby people's brains. And apparently we find out a little bit later, just as kind of in the whiteboard on the background, that it seems like it's a 5-mile radius for how far she's wiped people's brains. Dang. Ooh. Oh, and in case that wasn't enough, Westview does actually have a few people in it. Almost 4,000 people in that town. That is a lot of people trapped by Wanda. Oh, just bonus quick little point. The slogan for the town? Home. It's where you make it. How very fitting for Wanda. So we get to see for sure what the slogan is from the outside of the town. Now, we know that it's coming up time for a few other things to happen because, well, Monica's gonna head on into the town, right? And Jimmy hasn't tried to go in because we hear this little thing that apparently they can feel the town doesn't want them. So this is an interesting indication of something else Wanda's doing, or at least we assume it's Wanda. Who knows? It could be some other force at work too. So that helicopter now? It's time for that. Remember the little toy helicopter Wanda found in the beginning of the second episode? Well, actually what it really is a tiny drone that Monica grabbed out. It's an S-57 for what it's worth. And this gives us an idea of just how much Wanda's changing what things look like inside of Westview, which, intriguing. And, well, after the drone disappears, they find the barrier, and Monica touches it and gets sucked into Westview and also disappears. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and an interesting note, there definitely have been some theories and some guesses on this. That necklace of hers that has the sword thing on it, well, it actually is her lanyard, because she's wearing her lanyard with her ID before she gets sucked in, so almost assuredly that's what gets turned into the sword necklace. It's pretty cool how these little pieces are taken and then turned inside of the world of WandaVision, the little world of Westview right there. Well, anyway, after that happens, you can bet there's one heck of a response after you lose a high-ranking sword agent. So sword swarms on into the area, along with the FBI, the Army, the Air Force, Research Lab, Space Command, and who the heck knows who all else. Yeah, and that means bringing in scientists, a whole bunches of them, including Dr. Darcy Lewis. And dang, we have not seen her in the MCU in over 7 years, which, well, in MCU time would actually be slightly longer because of the whole blip thing. So way back in the second movie, Thor, Dark World, it's like, wow, dang. And then here's where the episode gets super meta, because Darcy finds a way to get a signal from Westview and they see the same show that we've been watching. Well, largely. It seems like they might get some clips that are outside of what we've seen, because we do see at least one clip that way. But anyway, the first 3 episodes bit by bit, and we get to watch Darcy and Jimmy trying to figure the whole thing out, and also seeing them, well, know about as much as we do and asking many of the questions we as an audience have been asking, which, come on, it's fun. It really is. Although I should say, they don't seem to have the Marvel comics to refer to for potential guesses, just saying. Which kind of gives some of us a few other guesses. Anyway, yeah, that's fun. So other things we find out, the town barrier is a hexagon in shape. Weird. We've been seeing hexagons in the show so far, multiple spots. We still don't know why yet for sure. Is it just a reference to hexes from witches? Well, that seems just isn't enough. There's got to be something else. There's been talk about AIM, and maybe AIM is involved because apparently they use a hexagon, and that's this villainous organization that's super into science within the comics. But yeah, don't know what's going on here. I'm sure that answer is going to come up, but we don't have it yet. And here's another interesting thing. We find out that on the outside, they haven't identified who Agnes actually is in the real world. They've identified all kinds of other people. Everybody else on the board is identified, but not Agnes. No real name, no ID. And that's very intriguing. Now, I'm sure it's not simply a coincidence and that they just hadn't put up her ID, because why would you do that? It seems too clear an Easter egg there. So what does that suggest? I'm gonna guess that it's yet another clue to her being the witch Agatha from the comics. We're gonna go ahead and see where that heads and whether Agatha is a good witch or a bad witch. Who knows for sure. Looking forward to it though. Oh, and other interesting little things. When Wanda rewinds time, they don't see it out there, which kind of is probably unsurprising, but essentially just jumps to whatever that piece is that Wanda actually wanted to have happen. And oh, the Beekeeper. Finally time to talk about that Beekeeper. So apparently this is Agent Franklin, not AIM or anything like that, or at least to our knowledge. And so he's actually in a hazmat suit, goes out through the sewers, and well, it gets morphed into a beekeeper outfit as soon as he goes in and crosses that barrier. And also he was actually wearing a cord connected to him, which gets cut off and turned into a jump rope. And so they pulled the jump rope back out into the real world, which also leaves me going, hey, are these permanent changes right there? Because that's clearly done from the barrier from Wanda's powers. So is she permanently changing things, or is this a temporary thing, or is it more illusionary? Definitely curious to see that. Like, if they were to take the jump rope miles away, would it all of a sudden look back normal again, or would it still be a jump rope? That's the question right there. Well, anyway, we're gonna move on forward, and it's finally time to go ahead and see what happens a little bit more when Wanda went ahead and confronted Monica. So there's a little bit more in that moment. So we're jumping back into Westview, and not something they're seeing right here, because they only just saw the TV just cut forward all of a sudden and then have Monica pop out into the real world. But back in there inside Westview, well, you see Wanda realizing Monica's an outsider and calling her a trespasser and then booting her out using her powers, and whew, dang, you don't want to be on the other side of that. Scary right there. Heck, Monica gets blasted out through numerous walls, which, well, of course Wanda rebuilds afterward. But another interesting thing is that right afterward she seems confused about what happened. And frankly, I'm confused about how much Wanda is really aware of in this and how much she's really in control. Now, I keep theorizing different answers to that question. It seems like some of it is subconscious until something triggers her, and then it goes back beneath the surface and she can lose herself in the fake reality of Westview. But then there are lines like her response to Vision talking about how they can go anywhere they want, which she then disagrees with because she's like, no, we can't. But that she has everything under control, which really sounds like she is aware the entire time. Or heck, Monica outside telling everyone that it's all Wanda. So how much does she know? Or heck, maybe it's another character. It's Mephisto or Grim Reaper or Agatha the Witch or someone else entirely screwing with this. And that's behind Wanda seeming to know and not just an act on Wanda's part. Oh man, too many possibilities yet to unlock. Oh, and by the way, while we're talking about lots of possibilities, wouldn't it be horrible if she brought, say, Ultron or other villains back to life? Apparently that happened in the comic that is a big inspiration for the show. And since we've been mentioning Ultron recently, gotta wonder. Well, anyway, we're not quite done with the episode yet. So there's at least one more giant piece here. Because now it is time for the holy shit, what the fuck moment of the episode. And that's Vision. Because he pops out of the background and then, oh my, it is dead Vision. As the case may be, a complete hole in his head from back in Infinity War. This is the stuff of nightmares. And man, that shocks you when you first see it. Sure as hell did me. And Wanda has a strong reaction herself, and well, she quickly fixes everything. But dang if there aren't a ton of questions here. Now first, dead Vision I think might have a bit more color here than he did when he was freshly dead back in Infinity War. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a lighting thing and he was in shadow back in Infinity War and the way he fell. Hard to say. But I'm voting that there's a little more color. And also, this might just be in us establishing what happened to Vision's body right here. Or maybe Wanda's just hallucinating and imagining it because she's freaking out and thinking about Vision being dead. That's possible, I suppose. But I'm voting that this is actually his dead body. Or not dead because it's reanimated and he's kind of alive. So not really dead corpse. However you want to put it. I think it's probably Wanda slowly breathing life into Vision. Kind of the theory talked about before in one of the live streams. About kind of the whole way that we're going through the color and bringing color to the world. Which is kind of also bringing color to Vision and bringing Vision back to life. So I'm voting that's the case here. And that she's trying to bring him fully back, which also means that, well, I guess if anyone could see Vision right now, they would see that dead Vision like that, but hopefully eventually gets back to being more the Vision we know. But also that makes you wonder. Back in episode 2, when they had sex, it was Wanda and essentially the living corpse of Vision? And if she's fully aware of things, then she could kind of see that or kind of not. Oh man, this is screwy. So I guess Wanda's a literal corpse bride. Whoa. Anyway, yeah, so who knows? At the end of this, we might get Vision back, I suppose, if Wanda is successful? Or maybe some version of Vision who is not quite the old Vision, but a new, kind of different version? And heck, for all that, what is Vision going to think about all of this when he finds out everything that's been going on? I mean, toss on top of that Vision and his sense of morality, too. Oh, there's going to be problems here, and we're coming up on that quick, I imagine. Well, anyway, speaking of coming up on that, we end the episode with Vision clearly being uneasy about what's going on, and, well, even seemingly uneasy about Wanda having to force a smile. Yeah, no, that is a clear, ominous setup for the next episode, and him starting to find out even more about what's really going on and about his own death, which are things that we've hinted at in the original trailer for the show. So yeah, there we go. That's where we left off. Man, waiting for the next episode. Now, this one I definitely enjoyed. I'll admit, I'm sad not to have spent the time with WandaVision like we have in the past 3 episodes. But hey, we got to see the outside world and so many Easter eggs sitting in here. We also brought in 2 of our characters that I've been wanting to see more of, Darcy and Jimmy. We met the director of S.W.O.R.D., ton of world building. We saw some more of the snap back. And yeah, that disturbing moment too. Yeah, that was a good one. And hey, it also feels like we got a lot of setup out of the way, so we will hopefully be ready to get this car up to speed. Maybe not the speed of Vision or of Wanda's pregnancy yet, but certainly I expect the show to start revving up. And I'm expecting we're gonna finish off everything we've seen from the trailers next week. And that means it's gonna be time to see Halloween in Westview. Man, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to watching it with everyone when it comes out, so join me on that live stream next week. Definitely see you then. Or maybe on a creative video, because I put out a couple of those already. Maybe I'll put out another one. Real creative music video of WandaVision. But hey, in the meantime, well, what about you? What did you think about seeing Darcy and Jimmy again? And are you going to be haunted by visions of Vision? Well, anyway, let me know down below in the comments. And hey, before I go, let me also throw out a big warm thank you to my patrons. I always want to make sure to give a note out to them and a good shout out because I really appreciate their support. And hey, anyone else, if you're able to support the channel, even throw a couple dollars my way, more than appreciated. And if you're not, hey, I just enjoy the videos. I love having you around. So to everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like, a share, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you back here tomorrow for another new episode of Freeform Disney. Have a magical day, and may the Force be with you. Always.